back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge. Joining me today, someone I'm a huge fan of, Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Jason Voorhees, and director himself, Vin DiSanti. Vin, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for being on. For those of you that have not watched Never Hike Alone, the link is down here in the description. You can watch it free on YouTube. Never Hike in the Snow is coming out very soon. So excited for that. Is there anything you could tell us about that with it coming out here relatively quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming out on October 13th. It's a Tuesday, so it's going to be like coming home. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's like coming home and watching like an episode of TV. You know what I mean? It's a half-hour episode in our Never Hike Alone film series that we're doing. There are about 4 or 5 pieces that we've been working on over the last 2 years to get ready for this. And Never Hike in the Snow is obviously set in winter time, and fans have been really pumped to see Jason Voorhees in the snow. So we created this prequel, which sort of acts as a pilot for our new series based on Never Hike Alone, the movie. So Never Hike Alone is available on our YouTube. You can stream it for free right now. It's free and available for everybody to see it because it's a fan film. And then obviously Never Hike in the Snow will be available on October 13th, the same way, free and available. And we also have actually a music video titled Disappear, which is available on our YouTube stream right now, which is actually an entry to this Jason Voorhees universe. So you can actually see a super prequel set maybe 20 and 13 years ago of a time some kids came to Camp Crystal Lake and didn't quite make it out. So yeah, we've been having a lot of fun telling these stories about Jason and some of the original stuff that we've been doing. But yeah, just check us out at youtube.com/WompStompFilms. We got a lot of new projects coming out pretty soon, including our first original film, Pathosis. And we're going to be crowdfunding for a lot of fun stuff too. We have the final call right now. So if you want to pre-order your Blu-ray, you can still do that throughout the release of the film and sometime after it. Once we submit our orders for Blu-rays, we'll close that and we'll ship out the first edition. We'll have second and third editions as well for those who tune in at later dates and wonder, how can I get one? If you just come to Womp Stomp Films on social media, you'll find us, WOMPSTOMPFILMS.
All of that is down here in the description as well, guys. So make sure you're checking them out. I'm so excited to get my Never Hike in the Snow bundle. Something I'm very excited about. And again, for those of you that don't know it, and everybody that knows me knows how I feel about fan-made films. I was just talking to you about that a minute ago, Vin. I think that the fan films often do more justice than a lot of Hollywood films because you guys aren't in it for the money. You guys are out there for your love of the film, your love of the franchise. You're not going to bastardize anything. Like we were saying, you're doing this to make people feel now how you felt when you first watched it. And Never Hike Alone does that. And what you learn in Never Hike Alone is never fuck with Jason's Playboys. Those are off limits.
Exactly. Yeah, can't touch that.
Yeah, so, and God, I don't want to spoil anything, but guys, you're going to get a major callback to Friday the 13th, especially part 4, 5, 6, if you go back and watch Never Hike Alone. So if you haven't seen it already, it's, I believe, around 52 minutes, and it's worth the watch. So much anxiety, and one of the coolest machete scenes in any of the whole franchise. I love that scene. It's so cool. Again, no spoilers, but make sure you guys are going to check this out.
Yeah. Definitely watch it all the way through to the end.
Yes, absolutely. And you are reprising your role as Jason. Anybody else from Never Hike Alone coming back that you could talk about? Or?
Yeah, so I actually would spoil some things. So I'm coming back, obviously, as Jason. I share that role with Brian Forrest, who's my stuntman. So some days when it's a little bit too technical for everything to be going down, Brian steps in, and so he's my double, and we work on the character together. And he's great. He does a lot of good work in Never Hike in the Snow. This is going to be a new set of characters from Never Hike in the Snow. So if those of you who haven't seen the films before, we do have some reprising characters, but not the main subject, who's Kyle MacLeod. This is actually set 3 months prior to Never Hike Alone, which is a setup film. So like I said, it's kind of a prequel where it's life in Crystal Lake, and we are going to meet some real cool characters that you will recognize from the films. And we're going to meet some new ones too. We have a fantastic lead actor. His name is Cortland Gordon. He plays like a character of Mark Hill, and he plays the character in the film that is now the kind of Kyle MacLeod character, the one that's missing out in the forest and facing Jason and trying to get away. And then basically the film is centered around him missing, and those in the town looking for him. So people in town, the sheriff's department, and of course, that leaves his mother, who also wants to know where he is. So that's played by Anna Campbell. She's a fantastic actress, and you'll meet the rest of the cast as you, if you just do some research on us and watch Never Hike Alone, you'll see everybody that's in it. I think you'll be really excited with the alumni that we have present, and you'll get a real kick out of it.
Oh yeah. The minute I saw the ambulance driver, I marked out, man. So
yeah, man. Good.
You guys that have seen it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But not to get too spoilery, let's talk about the reason that you are here. We are here to talk about the first horror movie that you ever watched. You are a major influence on a lot of us. I want to know where that started for you. So your first horror movie was?
Night of the Living Dead, the original George Romero black and white version.
What a great way to start, man. And that's such a timeless film. Yeah. Do you know about how old you were when you watched it, who you were with?
It was about the time we got a little video rental shop called Silver Screen Video in my town. And so it was kind of when we had just kind of moved in. I was maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8, somewhere. I was real young, and I watched movies, and I watched a lot of Godzilla, and I watched a lot of stuff like that, but not like true horror movies. I watched a lot of monster movies. And in this kind of basket of movies I used to pluck from, I used to kind of see some horror films. They wouldn't let me watch them. And then one day, I think we rented Night of the Living Dead, and I was going through the tapes, and I put it in, and I sat down in my basement and I watched it. And it was obviously filmed in Pennsylvania, but I grew up in New England. So the countryside was very recognizable to where I grew up, and I started to really associate it with where I was and that stuff. And I think what really got to me was, I don't know how much I understood of the premise. I wasn't there for the social themes, all those things. The only thing I remember being so afraid of was that someone was trying to get in the house, and the more and more people that showed up, the harder it was to keep everybody back, and the terrifying thought of that. And then going upstairs in my house and seeing that we have windows everywhere, and we don't have enough wood in the garage, and starting to feel like, if zombies attacked, would we be prepared? And put me on my toes, and I've been on my toes ever since. I mean, there isn't a house or apartment or place I've ever walked into that I haven't scanned the room and found the windows and been like, okay, I know where the weak parts are, just in case. And it's this.
I know what I got to board up, and I know where I got to go to get the fuck out if I need to go.
Yeah, I got my exit strategy. I got all that. I mean, I was taught that at a very young age. I was like, how can, and then obviously being like, why can't they get away? They're just walking and stuff like that. So, really starting to see how I would survive this. How would I survive this thing? It really kind of captured me. And I've loved the film ever since.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because when you watch the original Night of the Living Dead, you're right. You're talking about, they're just walking, they're slow, they're stupid. But at the same time, George Romero does it in such a way that is so encapsulating, and it's so just like, it's mind blowing watching that original one. So which scene from that affected you the most, and why?
It was always like the end when everything's collapsing. It was just that, there was that sense in the movie where, unfortunately things weren't happening, but it was like, but at least they were barricaded in, you know what I mean? And I think like that overwhelming sense of force really just kind of got to me. And the fact that they had to recede to the basement, and then realizing that the basement really was the safest place after all that. I just think that like, that was one thing I really understood in my first watching. I was like, wow, they should have been in the basement the whole time. Yeah. He was right. That jerk was right. And you're like, oh, and yeah, it's something about like those boards getting pushed off the wall. Like, I don't know, that image was something that like blew my mind, because again, as a kid, I'm thinking I'm safe. I'm looking at those boards thinking like, okay, the characters are safe, so I'm safe. They're only in danger when they go outside. I think the scene where the truck blows up and they start eating the remains, that got to me too. The fact that like, I remember thinking like, those people were just alive and now they're being eaten.
Yeah.
Like,
by
so
other people, at that young age, it's still, there's people that are doing this.
Yeah. They're people, but it's like, they're undead. They're zombies. another good one. I mean, some of the imagery, I think, of even the original zombie, the one that kind of comes after them, they start doing the lightning effects on him. I think those are images that kind of popped in my head for a while. Him just like lumbering over the frame, and it's like the real old school like flap lighting that they used to do.
Yeah.
In that era of cinema. So it was effective. It's a funny because you can look at it, you can see how it could be made for an independent budget. I mean, it definitely was.
And this movie is so influential that, and this may show how weird I am, but every time I meet a woman named Barbara, all I think of is they're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yeah. I know, same thing. I mean, I either think of that or Barbara Crampton. It's either one of the two. It's like my mind goes either way. And I just try to hold back they're coming to get you, Barbara, because I know they probably hear it a lot.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, I'll spare you, but in my head, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, my name's Kenny. So growing up, I can't tell you how many times I heard, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny." So I totally get that part of it too. So I want to ask you about the remake, the color remake. What are your opinions on that?
It's funny, like when they talk about like the coming of age of like the strong female, and then you look at what Tom Savini did with that film. I think it's a nice a nod. I think it's a nice to strong females taking the twist and not making Barbara the weak, I can't move woman, and making her like, no, I'm gonna kick ass. I'm gonna do something. It was I think as you study the film as you get older, and if you go through film school, or like you just become like a savant of films, or whatever it is that draws you into watching cinema. You go back and look at it, you see the social context of what's going on in the original Night of the Living Dead. So I think for Tom to kind of not do the same exact thing that George did, and twist it and use it in the same way, where he's like, okay, if that film was about this, well, this one's going to be about strong females. So I think that was a cool choice. And yeah, I mean, it feels, I mean, obviously the same things happen, and the effects are a little bit better, a little bit more gruesome. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate them both, but because I had watched the first one, it just feels like I'm watching the second one over again. You know what I mean? There's that twist of her making the different change, but even then, the rest of it really plays off how the other one plays off. So it is what it is.
And I do love Tony Todd in the color. Obviously, Tony Todd is an absolute genius.
That's right. But Tony Todd's really good. I mean, it's a good cast. I mean, you can't really complain about it. It's one of the remakes that's done really, really well. I think for the sake of it kind of changing up that one thing, I guess it makes it worthy of it being changed up, because the rest of it is so kind of on George's story. Just with that, it's like that one little nudge of the element change. It's really funny how different of a movie it makes.
See, the only thing I don't like about the remake is the ending. One thing I did like about this, I believe it was 68 was the original one. The thing I liked the most about that, and I don't want to say like the most, that's super fucking dark, but how he survived. He made it, and he gets shot anyway. But then in the remake, how he is a zombie when he comes up from the basement, that part always kind of bummed me out. I didn't like the idea of him becoming a zombie, but if that's the only complaint you have, I mean, that still shows how good of a film it is.
Yeah, and I agree, because again, it was the social context of the time, and the fact that he was still alive, but also, how things were treated, and the fact of how important it was to have an African American lead in your film, which really, I mean, think about it, at that time was really it was rare, especially in independent film.
Right.
It was a risky choice, you would say, for something like that, but George was ahead of his time, and he knew, and he wasn't looking at anything else but an actor who could really carry that weight and did an amazing job. And obviously, like Tony bringing it back, I think Tony being in the role allowed it to be a little bit more of a horror film in that sense, in that regard, because it wasn't carrying the same overtones from before.
Yeah.
And so he kind of allowed it to like end in a horror movie way, where he ended up dying. It's unfortunate he ended up dying, and she has to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if anybody, at least it was her type thing. And there was somewhat of a sign of respect, like a passing of the torch in some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was real. But again, it's like, also you don't want to do the same exact thing. So you're you're nudging little things, and this is what it looks like.
Sure.
But yeah, I prefer not prefer, but I find the original ending more artistic and impactful in a way.
Especially like you said, for that time, what they were going
for that time, but also
time.
like in comparison to Tom's, which is a little bit more of a Hollywood ending. You know what I mean? Tom's is the Hollywood ending, and George's is like the statement piece. And I think that it's very powerful artistically and socially. So I think that's where they nudges that out, because they're both fine endings, but obviously George set the standard, and Tom just made it look pretty. Tom kind of did the same thing and made it look prettier, and that's kind of what it is. And it was cool. It was a nice homage piece and things like that. Yeah. And it's funny because just because it's sanctioned, why isn't that remake like a fan film? You know what I mean? I mean, I know Tom did, you know, but it's still like,
and like you said, it's protected by the Library of Congress. I mean, that's how important Night of the Living Dead is. So you're right. That absolutely could just be, a very big budgeted fan film.
Yeah. Like what's the difference between a remake and a fan film?
Right.
I mean, it's somebody coming in and trying to interpret the film and remake it. And that's what fan films do.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever. We're all making the same decision. So it's kind of funny when people talk about that, but then we can talk about things like that and not even think about it in the same context. I mean, yeah, they have permission to do it, but I mean, as we've seen, even people with permission screw it up. So I just want to see stories in the people with the best hands. And what is nice is that remake is in good hands. It's in good hands with Tom because of the work he ended up doing with Romero down the line, and going back to kind of put his spin on the original one, like imagine if we had worked together back then type thing, which I think is really, really interesting. Because if
you want someone to redo your work, Tom Savini's got to be towards the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that there was a conversation there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that was something that if anybody, they would work together and be like, hey, I'd really like to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure George was like, why do you want to remake that? You know what I mean? He's like, but if you feel compelled, like I can imagine that's probably how it went. So yeah, and I mean, it's it's cool. I think it's one of the things. And then like, so yeah, I just love those two films.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've always been a big fan. I'm not one of the people that thinks remakes are inherently bad.
No.
I think that there absolutely can be great remakes. There are misses, but there are very many hits too. So
I very much like Dawn of the Dead. I love the original and I like the remake.
Yep. For different reasons too. Like I'm with you.
Although that's one that I like Day of the Dead, but I really don't like the remake of Day of the Dead, or like the 18th remake of Day of the Dead. Yeah.
See, and there's plenty of remakes. Dawn of the Dead, I just did a top 10 favorite remakes, and Dawn of the Dead was actually my number one on there.
Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense. It's a good one.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. And never, Night of the Living Dead kind of like really set me off on zombie films too, because after that it was Day and Dawn, Dawn and Day. But then it also sent me over to Return of the Living Dead, like the pseudo sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And I always like that whole branch of films, those three really, like Dawn, Day, and Return, those, and then Night was like really like the quad of like zombie movies that shaped how I loved movies. Because think about it, like what Night did, Return of the Living Dead, as an extension of that story, which is hilarious. I mean, the concept is just so good. But how they kept, it was the same thing in that movie, how they kept coming, and it was even scarier because they couldn't die.
Right.
That the movie, the best line by Tom Matthews in the movie, you mean the movie lied?
I've always looked at Return of the Living as more of like just the punk rock version of Night of the Living Dead. You know, like it takes Night of the Living Dead, just punks it out, man. And I love Return of the Living Dead, man. Like I absolutely adore that film. And like you said, Tom Matthews in it. Like it's such a great movie, man. I'm with you. Honestly, Day of the Dead was probably my least favorite of the bunch. But that's my least favorite. Yeah, that's my least favorite. That's still better than 80% of the other films that were coming out around that time period. So I love the Of the Dead series. I think they're all amazing.
I feel like Dawn is super strong. I mean, I love the original the best just because it was the one that kind of launched me. Dawn is obviously super strong. I actually I need to sit down and actually watch the different cuts of it. I want to see the different cuts of it, which I didn't even know existed until this year because I just really wasn't paying attention because I was so satisfied with what I had.
Sure.
But then like, yeah, Day I found like laborious.
Yeah.
For most of it, and then it gets good at the end. But I still felt like it didn't feel like the other films. It felt like things were moving on. It just kind of felt like going around the same circles. And then obviously like there was Land of the Dead, and I don't know how many came after. How many came after Land?
I fell off after Day. Like I said, those four. You got Night, Dawn, Day, and Return, and after that, didn't they just do a new remake of Land of the Dead too?
Something like that. They did Land of the Dead, then they did like another one that was more it was a first person POV. Yeah. Land I didn't mind because it had Dennis Hopper, right?
The original Land of the Dead.
Yeah. I think that had
so.
Dennis Hopper as the guy who was running the town.
Okay. Like
he was
I
running
seen
the
Land
island.
like once when I was like 13, and I just remembered not being a huge fan. I mean, it's something I wouldn't mind going back and revisiting now that I'm a little older. Maybe I can appreciate some things a little more.
Yeah, I think. I mean, considering because is it as good as like Dawn and like Night? No, but if you look at the context of like what comes out in independent film and what makes up independent film in the area that it came out of, and you look at other films that like kind of surround it, it's pretty on par. And then George always finds a way to like weave in his social context to it. And like it has its own social message. It's pretty free and clear. You know, you probably weren't looking for that like you could now as a kid. You know what I mean? You were looking for like, oh, I want the stuff. And, you know, they had the whole concept, you know, it's the concept of like the herd mentality, and they have the lead zombie and all that stuff, and revenge on the city and walking underneath the water and coming up with all the heads rising from the thing.
Yeah,
it's
I
cool,
do remember that.
Yeah. But I remember the found footage one being pretty fun too. I remember watching that.
Diary of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead. Yeah.
I own that. Now that when you said found footage, that's what snapped it in for me. Diary of the Dead.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that one very much. I like I said, I own that one. So I definitely.
So that was very scary, very in your face. You know, very much the type stuff. It did a good job of passing the camera around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So back to the original Night of the Living Dead. What if you had to choose your favorite scene from that movie? What would it be?
My favorite scene. I mean, I really love the opening and like how it, like her getting to the farmhouse. Like there's something about that whole kind of like unraveling of crazy in that moment that's like, that kind of gets me. And it's what drew me in to the movie. I think that it was just like that. And then I was just then I was just like hooked. I really, you know, that was just like that. I'd never experienced like a chase scene like that before. It wasn't the same as like watching like an action movie or something like that. I was like really like scared.
Yeah.
And it really kind of brought that kind of attention to it. And then I don't know, I would say the only other thing that really stands out is just you know, of course there's like the ending too where like the daughter gets the mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That one's good. I mean, just seeing that iconic, you know, that's the iconic image, you know what I mean? It's her in that basement light, waking back up after like laying there all movie, not doing anything. And then she gets back, and that was cool. I remember that being like scary and being like, oh my God, turn around. Like that was like that type of moment for me. But I don't know. I think it's the opening.
And that actually leads into my next question. Which death in the film, I hate saying favorite, but what death in the film affected you the most?
It was definitely the explosion.
Okay.
The explosion kill and them getting eaten like barbecue. I thought that was very vivid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with that, for me, I think it always goes to the last death when he's in the window. And I think that one's always got me pretty well. Now I want to throw you a little bit of a curveball here. We've been talking about your first horror movie. Now I got to go scream on you here. And what's your favorite scary movie? I got to know, what's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, my favorite horror movie. I mean, my favorite horror movie really to watch is Friday the 13th Part 6. mean, that's like the one that I would always like turn on and like love the most because I love the ending of it. I think it's like one of the greatest climaxes in like horror film history, like fighting Jason on the lake. It was the one that like really kind of cemented my fear of Jason.
Sure.
Because he was stranded at the bottom of the lake of that movie, and I lived on a lake. So when I looked out in my water, I didn't see my lake. I saw a crystal lake, and I thought Jason was out there somewhere. And it scared me to death. I really love that one. But if it was out of Friday the 13th, wow, I don't know. There's just it's so weird. Like my taste is just like all over the place, and I don't really keep a favorite. I just either like it or I don't like it.
Sure.
And then if I like it, I like it for a lot of reasons. And I mean, I'm trying to think of what would really set me off as far as movies go. Let me look at my thing. Do a quick scan. See if there's anything that stands out. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, other than Friday the 13th, I mean, it's just really it's Friday the 13th. I love all the slashers. I'd say maybe the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was one that like really screwed me up because that was the first movie I ever jumped out of my bed and turned off the movie. When he comes out with the chainsaw when they're wheeling Franklin through the grass and he gets Franklin, I got so scared. And to this day, like I was actually at a haunt in Michigan this weekend. And they had a part of like the haunt where you walk through and the guy has a chainsaw and I ran, like I'm 6'3", 230. Like, and I ran as fast as I could. I was like, nope, not the chainsaw. I don't do chainsaws. And the worst part was they have someone waiting for you at the other side with another chainsaw. I was just like, no.
So you were running to the chainsaw.
I was running from one chainsaw to the next. It was a lot of fun. Niles, Haunt Park in Niles, Michigan. Cats off to them. They do a really great job. That was probably one of the best experiences I've ever been through, and like intricate mazes and stuff like that. So it was real cool.
I may have to go there. I am a Michigan boy.
Oh, dude. Yeah, dude, you got to go there.
Me and my wife.
I just got back from Michigan. I was in, where was I? I was in Battle Creek.
That's like an hour and a half away from me, man. I wish I'd have known.
Yeah, everything's an hour and a half away in Michigan is what I found out.
It really is, man.
Every time we drove somewhere, it was an hour and a half.
I always end these with the same question every time. Black and White, Night of the Living Dead. We're ranking that on a skull count. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. How many skulls do you give Night of the Living Dead?
I'm giving that a full 5, baby.
Perfect. Don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, get down here in the description. Check their stuff out. You're going to be so excited. And again, if you've never seen Never Hike Alone, now's the perfect time to watch it. You're going to check this out, and you're going to be led right into Never Hike in the Snow so you can see where it all started. Again, I am Ken Sledge. This is Sledgehammer Horror. Stay what you are. Keep talking horror, and we'll see you guys soon.